All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. It's the Week 10 primer episode, so you know what time it is. We've got our top 6 sleeper starts that have matchups to target coming your way. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I'm joined by a man who surely, absolutely has to have an Alec Pierce jersey in his closet at this point after another sensational call on the former Cincinnati Bearcat last week. But that was then, and this is now. And of course, it's Derek Brown. D-Bro, how are you feeling as we head into Week 10?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. A lot of good calls for both of us on this show over the last few weeks. Had some misses too. You know, Samaje Perine gets hurt and doesn't do anything. But that's how that goes, man. Like, on this show, we're really trying to highlight players that are on that fringe, and whether you're struggling for options, you got bye weeks, you got injuries, you got deep leagues you're trying to figure out. That's the crux of this show. And this week, I'll just pull back the curtain. It was tougher, man. This week was tougher to try to find options and stuff with so many good teams on a bye.
Yeah.
So many trades that happened in the NFL this last week. So many split committees and stuff, backfields and players with bad matchups. So before we dive into all the players, I just want to give the preface of this. We are not talking about any running backs. Running back is a giant crap fest for fantasy right now, whether it's matchups, backfields, all that kind of stuff. It's just bad. So we're going to highlight a bunch of wide receivers. We're actually going to talk about 2 tight ends on this show that I think are in great matchups.
Agreed.
And if you're in a really rough spot, both of these guys do carry flex appeal this week, and you might be in a situation where, dude, I'm in one of my leagues where I picked up both these guys we're going to talk about later, and I'm flexing 2 tight ends right now. That's where we're at. That's where we're at, Seth.
The old tight end heavy approach here in Week 10. I love it, man. And I'm in those streets with you. Right now, I'm deciding between a few of the tight ends we'll touch on later in the show. So I appreciate the transparency there. We are going to help everyone, though, as we continue to shift through the rest of the season. Excited for it. And before we fire things up, shout out to our friends, our family, and even maybe some foes joining us on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel or in the audio feed. Thank you so much for all the support this season. Please do us a quick favor and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Help us get to 300,000 subscribers. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you want a chance to win a signed Justin Jefferson Minnesota Vikings jersey for absolute free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, go ahead and download the Fantasy Pros app, B, leave a review for the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast, or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok. We are at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you're going to receive, and we will, of course, announce a winner right here on the program nearing the beginning of next month. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and ring the bell so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and claim your prize if you are that lucky winner. And D-Bro, no Justin Jefferson, of course, in the Sleepers video this week, but you do have his quarterback, one JJ McCarthy.
I do, man. And look, everybody could just say I'm biased. I know I'm a JJ McCarthy truther. I will absolutely carry my truther card.
Since day one?
I mean, dude, he's been the QB 11 and QB 13 in fantasy scoring in his 2 healthy starts. And the matchup is there this week. Like, we know the Ravens are going to push them, and they're still a defense that we can target, man. Since week 5, Baltimore's given up the 11th most passing yards per game, and they're allowing the 4th highest success rate per dropback. So if I think he can succeed while dealing with the pressure that the Lions brought last week, and in only his 2nd healthy start of the season, yeah, I think JJ McCarthy can definitely succeed this week.
Do you think the recent stronger performances from that Baltimore secondary is a change in scheme? Is it just, hey, we were going up against Tua last week, we were going up against Caleb Williams the week before? Because while both those quarterbacks had over 260 yards passing, no passing touchdowns in 2 weeks straight for a Baltimore secondary that was just leaking touchdowns to everybody.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think part of it is the quarterback play, but if you watch the Baltimore and Dolphins game too, you also understand that game could have gone very, very differently. Like, we had a giant, like a long completion of Jalen Waddle that got wiped off the board because of a tripping BS penalty to Ollie Gordon. Some red zone nonsense. So like Tua could have come away with like 2 passing touchdowns that he didn't come away with. There was a lot of it, like, problems with execution for the Dolphins, but the takeaway for that is the Bears were able to move the ball pretty decently, and so were the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So what do we think the Vikings can do? And this Vikings team, I mean, the offensive line is getting healthier. So we should see better pass protection up front. And the matchup is there. So I think JJ can have a really strong week. And to your point, like, I think the Ravens' pass defense has improved, but they're still not a unit that, like, I'm scared of, Seth.
Yeah, they're going to hope for some addition by subtraction. They, of course, dealt Jair Alexander to the Eagles this past week. So we'll see what that does to the secondary. But I'm looking forward to JJ McCarthy. I was really excited with what he did in the first half of last week's game against Detroit, and then kind of, slowed things down a little bit, took his foot off the gas. But I think that was more, hey, we're up on a really good team. Let's just play conservative. Yes. No big mistake. So
yeah, that was more just sitting on a lead and trying to get a win for Minnesota. That's what that was.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the wide receiver position, where you're going to the Windy City with the New York Giants coming to town.
Yeah, man, look, I think people need to be flexing Darius Slayton this week. If you looked at the box score for Slayton last week, you're like, oh, it was a solid game. Dude, it could have been a monster game. He dropped a long touchdown in the end zone when he got hit big. That would have put him up close to 100 receiving yards. And the thing that I really want to specifically highlight, and if you've already read the primer, you know where I'm going with this, is the Bears' run defense has improved over the last few weeks. So you looking at this matchup just in general, it is a really good matchup for Jackson Dart. It is a really good matchup for the passing game for the Giants, and Darius Slayton coming along for the ride, man. Where Chicago, since week 5, they're giving up the 7th most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers. So Darius Slayton, he's kind of danced around maybe having a big game. Like, well, a lot of drops, a lot of problems executing have really hurt him. Like, he would have caught that big target like last week. We're talking about he's close to 100 yards with a score. He caught either one of the downfield targets versus the Saints. Much bigger day before even going out with a hamstring injury. So Slayton is a guy that I think he has been dancing around having a big day in fantasy and in the box score the last few weeks. I think it does come together this week for him.
Yeah, Darius Slayton, just always so consistent, man. It feels like almost every single year but 2024, this guy, since he's been with the team, has led them in receiving yards, always pops up down the stretch as someone we need to add to our teams. And look, man, like this Bears secondary, I mean, everyone remembers last week, T. Higgins made these guys look like little boys out there, made them look like they were playing against some Pee-wee football players, right? So 7 for 121 and 2 for T. Higgins. Jamar Chase should have had a touchdown, was on that anytime touchdown, but he still had 6 for 111 on 8 targets. Even Yoshi Voss got in the end zone as well on 5 for 66. So I think Darius Slayton is up here, and I also like Wan'Dale Robinson is a pretty nice play as well in your wide receiver 2 position. So Derek, let's go overseas now, and like, you would go anywhere in the world for Alec Pierce, I feel like. You would go to Brazil. You would go to Australia. You go to the depth of Antarctica for him. But you're going to over there in Germany, where he'll be facing the Falcons.
Yeah, dude. I mean, look, we talked about this last week. We're back on it again. And it just goes back to the coverage matchup. And I keep talking about the coverage data does freaking matter, people. I mean, just look at what he's done in the matchups that he's performed in. Like last week, he was the wide receiver 14 in weekly scoring at a 24% target share, 115 in the box score, and a 33% first read share. And it all goes back to the matchup against single high coverage. And now he went from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Atlanta secondary, which runs single high at the highest rate in the NFL, Seth. 73 of their percent. I can't talk. 73% of their defensive snaps are single high. And the reason I keep bringing this up, man, because Alec Pierce versus single high has elite wide receiver 1 per route numbers. He has gotten a 27% target share. He has produced 3.69 yards per route run. That is a ridiculous number. And he's also garnered a 32% first read share. And this Falcons secondary is taking a step back, man. Like since week 5, they're quietly giving up the 12th most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers. So whether you want to talk about coverage, you want to talk about the secondary taking a step back, all the things line up yet again for Alec Pierce in week 10.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm willing to throw him out there once again. The kid's been on a heater. Like, there's no advanced metrics or anything that really pop off the page when you're talking about Alec Pierce. But what's popping off the page to me is a secondary that, hey, we just let Demario Douglas, who wasn't really thought as a deep threat, go for 4 for 100. Stephon Diggs found the end zone. The 2 last weeks alone, Derek, they've allowed 4 receiving touchdowns, 2 wide receivers. That's the second most right there, tied with Washington and Dallas. So they are not as good. Like, is AJ Terrell not as good as we thought he was, or is this just like an overall, hey, you can't be Superman on the entire secondary type of thing?
I've never been a big AJ Terrell stan. I've done this for too many years and seen too many stretches where AJ Terrell is like one of those corners that he's very hot and cold. He'll go through stretches where he looks like one of the best corners in the NFL, and then you'll see a 4 or 5 game stretch after that where he looks like he can't cover anybody and everybody's burning him deep. So it depends on when you attack AJ Terrell. Like, when have you faced him? So no, I mean, it's not like, I think he's very talented. Sure. But if you look year over year over year, a lot of volatility to his game.
Yeah, he's not one of those shutdown cornerbacks like we think down there in Houston with Stingley. He's not someone like Sauce Gardner, who's now on the move as well to join Alec Pierce there in Indianapolis. And yeah, man, the vibes have to be high over in that team. And I would like to grab any piece of this offense I really can at this point. So let's keep it moving, though. And you're going back to that Minnesota-Baltimore game for your next sleeper start at the wide receiver position.
And I will give this with a caveat. This one it's a deep start. This is a deep league guy. This is if you are struggling for flex plays, but I think he's viable. And a lot of this comes down to, like, it's the coverage matchup. It's the fact that the Vikings have struggled to defend wide receivers in the perimeter just in general over the last few weeks, much less defend them deep. Like, since week 5, Minnesota is allowing the most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers and the second highest deep completion rate and deep passing yards. So you look at, and you marry that with Rashod Bateman, and going back to the coverage matchup, I think there's some volatility and kind of like muddiness to his numbers this year because of, you're looking at a long stretch with Cooper Rush also being the quarterback and the passing game tanking. But if you go back to last season with Lamar Jackson and stuff, the Minnesota Vikings over the last 2 years with Brian Flores, they are too high heavy. They're top 3, top 5 every single year in too high coverage. This year, Bateman's numbers don't look great versus too high coverage. But again, Cooper Rush is your quarterback. Nobody's numbers look good with Cooper Rush under center. But if you go back to last year, Seth, Rashod Bateman versus too high coverage, this dude had 2.43 yards per route run and 0.55 fantasy points per route run. And why do I bring up these two metrics? On a per route basis, he was freaking fantastic. If you look at a sample set last year of 230 qualifying wide receivers and tight ends versus too high coverage, in those two statistical categories, Rashod Bateman ranked 13th and 22nd.
Wow.
So you marry all of this. I'm not sitting here telling people that Rashod Bateman is a lock, set, forget type of player.
Certainly not.
If you need upside at a flex spot, if you are in a dire straits with, like, I don't know, there is nobody left. We talked about earlier today on a stream. If you got Garrett Wilson or who have you, and they get ruled out, and you're like, I don't know what to freaking do right now. Rashod Bateman's probably on every single waiver wire out there. And if he's available and you're in a pinch, he could pay off in a big way this week.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who runs a ton of routes, right? I mean, he's always out there. And even with DeAndre Hopkins, I thought maybe his snap share would go down a little bit this season. It really hasn't. He's still floating somewhere between 70-80% of the snaps most weeks. And for me, like, I don't mind attaching myself if I need a wild card play. Like, this is what this is. This is a bit of a wild card play. You're down in your matchup. You maybe need someone who can take you over the top. It could be Rashod Bateman. And I love our guy Jake Seeley over here at FP and from The Athletic saying before the season started, don't draft Rashod Bateman unless you can pick the games that you can play him. I think this is one of the few that you can play Rashod Bateman. So hopefully you didn't draft him, but hopefully he's still hanging out there on some waiver wires that you can fire him up this week. Before we get at the tight ends, a real quick reminder that you can dominate your fantasy football leagues with FantasyPros Premium, now available for free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager at any of our partner sportsbooks. That includes our friends over at Hard Rock Bet, baby. This is the easiest free way to get full access to our top fantasy tools all season long. Just go to fantasypros.com/premium to get yourself started. And D-Bro, we're going double tight end heavy this week for you. Who do you have first?
First guy up here is Cade Otton. He's at tight end 17 in ECR. And I know people are going to look at this and going to say, look, he's tight end 18 in fantasy points per game. Why the heck are you freaking talking about Cade Otton? Quietly under the surface, he started out with doing absolutely
nothing
to begin the season. Since week 5, Seth, he has a 19% target share. He's averaged 59 receiving yards per game with 2.14 yards per route run. He doesn't have any red zone targets or deep targets, so the high leverage usage has not been there. But again, we could also say, okay, well, fine, he hasn't scored a touchdown until this point of the season. He's due, okay? You could frame it that way if you want to go glass half full. But this all comes back to, if you were struggling at tight end, and depending on bye weeks, that could easily be the case. Jake Ferguson you could have that is out this week. Other top tight ends are out this week. You can need a streamer or a flex play. Cade Otton could easily fit the bill, man, because it's not only is the volume trending in his direction, but the matchup is definitively there, man. Like, New England has given up the 7th most receiving yards per game and the 7th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. So however you want to slice this up, emerging role, banged up passing attack, Chris Godwin's probably not going to play again. So like, who's Baker Mayfield going to lean on in this matchup? Cade Otton could really pay off for people.
Yeah, the thing I like about Cade Otton and tight ends like him is he's on the field a lot, right? Like, sometimes I get annoyed by these tight ends that they're not out there on third down. They're not much of a blocking threat, and you're just getting limited exposure to them. Cade Otton right now, among all tight ends, Derek, number 1 in snap share, 94%. And you do make a good point. Like, the red zone targets haven't been where we wanted. The deep targets aren't there. But with also probably no Bucky Irving back out there again, too, like, they got to start leaning on him here, 5th in route participation. So I don't hate a guy out here in Cade Otton who is seeing the targets as well. Like, you go back through the game logs, starting all the way back in week 4, his target share right now, 4 targets in week 4, 5 the next week, 6, 9, and 5. In a week where I am struggling to fill positions, I think you could do worse than Cade Otton.
Also, to your point about the matchup, the New England Patriots are not going to allow the Bucs to run. You cannot run versus the New England Patriots. So the other thing, if we want to talk about just schematically and stuff, if you're unable to run the ball and impose your will there, you're going to have to pass it. So if the Bucs want to move the ball up and down the field, hello, Cade Otton. Here's your easy button. This is how you make things easier for Baker Mayfield and this offense, because you're not going to be able to run the ball. Like that's tried and true. The Patriots' run defense has been top 5, top 10 the entire freaking season. I don't think that they fall off the map this week. So yes, it's all the parts and pieces for Cade Otton.
Yeah, give me Cade Otton in a game that has one of the higher totals on the slate as well. So we're expecting points down there in the Bay Area. Derek, let's come home with one of my favorite players on this entire slate. It's my best bet of the week as well. And you're on him for fantasy purposes.
And I'm going to say, I look, we know that CJ Stroud is out. I don't care if it's Davis Mills. I don't care if Davis Mills is under center. Don't even care. Doesn't matter to me. Because the fact of it is that go just give me your box score analysis from last week. Like, Dalton Schultz produced last week with Davis Mills playing most of that game, and he's going to do it again this week. Dalton Schultz last week with Davis Mills playing most of the game was tight end 7 in fantasy. You're telling me that he cannot be a top 12 tight end, that he cannot be a strong flex play for a player that, honestly, he's been having a quietly really solid season. He just hasn't been scoring the touchdowns. Like, when the matchup has presented itself, Dalton Schultz has played really freaking well. Like, everybody wanted to chase the game against Seattle. They said, oh my gosh, like, look at Dalton Schultz. Dude, Seattle was like a top 5 matchup for tight ends. And then everybody chased it, and they're like, oh, wait. Oh, he didn't do anything in the next week. Guess what? That's because the matchup fell off. The matchup is back for Dalton Schultz this week, man. Like, Dalton Schultz gets to play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have given up the 2nd most receiving yards and the 2nd most schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends. So you can dislike, you could say, oh, it's gross. We're talking about Dalton Schultz. You could dislike the quarterback play. You can talk about all you want to. The matchup lines up. The usage has been there. And Dalton Schultz is going to have another strong game, man.
Yeah, I talked about it on the Best Bet show over on BP NFL earlier this week, Derek. And my best bet, Dalton Schultz over 3.5 receptions. I'm locking that in, man. Like, he's had an average of 5.3 receptions per game since week 3. Like, the Texans went through this really interesting point where, hey, can we get Higgins? Can we get Knoll involved? Is it going to be Hutch? Can Christian Kirk get back healthy? No. The one thing that has been there outside of Nico Collins, who has been a little bit underwhelming this season, has been Dalton Schultz, man, and saw 8 targets last week. You said it with Davis Mills playing most of that game. You spoke on the matchup as well. And tight ends have hit their receptions prop against the Jaguars this year in 6 of 8 games, including Schultz himself. He played them in week 3. He went 5 for 39 on 6 targets. I think it's even potentially more now that they realize, hey, this is our second best pass catcher. We got to lean into it. So
Seth giving out winners here, baby. You'd love to see it. Sleeper pick some winners. I love it.
That's how we do it here, man. That is going to do it for us, though, on this episode of the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Comment down below your favorite Week 10 sleeper starts. We want to hear from you. And while you're here, make sure you're smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're new. For Derek Brown, I'm Seth Woolcock. Take care, y'all.